It is very rare these days for an album to burst into my eardrums out of nowhere and leave me so utterly bowled over, so ridiculously hyped and overwhelmed that I have given serious thoughts to ripping up my album of the year list this close to the end and starting over again. Do not let the questionable album art deceive you. Icelandic newcomers Mur are here, and their self-titled debut could very easily top end-of-the-year lists everywhere if you just give it a chance. Guys, gals and non-binary pals, my name is Ian, this is Rhyme Signatures, and we are once again opening the lid on the best new releases in prog, rock and metal. Okay, yeah, so you're gonna have to excuse me just a tiny little bit over the course of this review, as this album feels like it could be the one. Now, every year I end up getting exposed to that one album that haunts me and follows me around and won't leave me alone. That one album that makes me go, "Oh my God!" and occupies almost every spare moment of my thoughts and shoves aside everyone else to make sure that it is front and centre of my musical identity at any given moment. 2023 did it with No Spoon's Opus, 2022 was The Signal Heard Throughout Space by Parius, and 2021 was Illusory Walls by The World is a Beautiful Place and I Am No Longer Afraid to Die. But 2024 appears to have waited until the very last second to send to me the album that occupies this very special part of my brain. Mur, which as I understand things is Icelandic for wall, is the self-titled debut from what can only be described as a most unexpected and disarmingly brilliant album from this Reykjavik-based quintet. I knew nothing about this band prior to pressing the play button for the first time, and had it not been for the absolutely excellent K-Man riffs over on Twitter, then I probably would have skipped over this one. But in K-Man I so often trust, and press play I did. And while the album starts innocently enough, it doesn't take long before the elegant and friendly exterior shatters to reveal some of the darkest, heaviest, most pulse-pounding, heart-stopping music I've heard this year so far. This is the dark horse. This is the guy who arrives late at the party but also comes equipped with fresh kegs of beer, a dozen piping hot fresh pizzas, and a personality to match their generous soul. Mur have dazzled me, left my jaw agape and my mind blown, and I am extremely excited to have the privilege to cast my own spotlight on what could very well be the best album of 2024. Look, I know, I've got a bit of a reputation for hyperbole around these parts. I'm not so blinkered that I can't recognise faults in my own writing style and delivery, but dang it all, I really don't care right now. I want to gush about this album. I want to trip over my own superlatives and throw out a bare minimum of at least 3 adjectives for every noun. I want to feel flustered when talking about this. I want to carry off the energy of an excitable screaming fanboy, because this is what Mur has reduced me to. But okay, let's just pause for a second, okay? Let's take some deep, cleansing breaths, maybe consider yoga or meditation for a moment, go watch an ASMR video, I don't know. Right, okay, I'm calm, I'm collected, I'm back in the room, and I'm going to try and be as coherent as I can be about this album. So first off, just what the heck kind of music is this? Well, if the little snippets so far haven't given you enough of a clue, this is for all intents and purposes progressive post-metal. Think Cult of Luna, think The Ocean, Isis, Panopticon, etc, etc. This is metal with scope and scale. If you approach this album with the idea that there will be these huge, sweeping, majestic arcs of music punctuated with aggressive riffs and deep synth atmospherics, you'll be on the right path. In fact, if anything, for all of the comparisons to be made to the aforementioned bands, there is an awful lot of early Devin Townsend to be found here too. Think Ocean Machine, Terrier, Accelerated Evolution, that kind of thing. There's a similar sort of wall of sound to the guitars and a very familiar timbre from lead vocalist Kari Haraldsson, who sounds like an approximation between Devi, Bruce Sword of the Pineapple Thief, and Mikael Åkerfeldt of Opeth. To call Kari's performances on this album anything less than vocal delivery of the year would be slightly insulting. I've never heard anyone go as effortlessly from simple crooning cleans to raspy growls and ground-shaking bellows like this guy does. Every single note from him feels flawless in its execution and attribution to the mood and textures of the music surrounding him. And then there's the fact that these spine-chilling keyboards and synthesizers that make up the foundational backbone of the album's aesthetics all come from him too. Not content to just make the microphone quake, his tone and overall mood of the effects used on the keys are absolutely riveting. Every time I heard another one of his running rhythmic lines unfold, or when he takes the lead on a synth solo, I could feel the goosebumps forming on all of my limbs. But as I've often said, a band is more than just one person. Unless of course it's a one-man band, but you know what I mean here. And honestly, every single member of Mur is firing on all cylinders here. The riffing from guitarist Hilmir and Jon is magnificent to behold. The opening to third track, Frelsari, is just about the nastiest, stankiest, most crab-walk-inducing thing I've heard all year. It just blindsides you as the title track ends, slapping you across the face with a kind of volcanic force and energy. And it's this kind of extreme brutality that comes to define the guitar sounds of the album. I mean, sure, the intro of the opening track of Eldhaf is almost a complete bait and switch with what the rest of the record has in store for you, sounding initially like a far more well-known Icelandic band that plays in the post-rock world more than anything else. But it doesn't take long for the Devin Townsend comparisons to kick in, and it swiftly becomes apparent that this album is nothing like what the artwork might lead you to believe it's going to sound like. The drums of Arni and the bass of Ivar provide such a thick, wide and droning tapestry for the rest of the sounds to sit on. It's almost soothing in its intensity. It's methodical and oddly peaceful amidst the noise and chaos of the riffing and brutality of Kari's explosive screams, and makes for a rhythm section that feels amongst the best in the business right now. Now, I've often harped on about pacing and album length in my reviews, and with good reason. I feel that as an art piece, a record should neither be too long nor too short, as to sway in either end of these extremes can ruin the experience of the album as an art form for me. I am pleased to report that Mur have absolutely nailed the length and nailed the pacing. It's a tidy 54 minutes and 24 seconds long, and the spacing of the tracks is basically perfect. You've got the big atmospheric pieces like Eldhaf, Vitrun, Heimslit and Hoskefla, but these are broken up and interspersed amidst the shorter, snappier and more immediate songs of the title track, Freslari and Messa. It makes for an album that never leans too heavily on atmosphere for too long before dropping you into a pulse-pounding, head-banging, shorter-form experience. And it all feels so fluidic and so well executed that you'd be forgiven for thinking that Mur have been writing music together for at least 20 years. But let's talk about the closing section of the album, the 1-2 punch of Heimslit and Hoskefla. Man, talk about some of the best 21 minutes of the entire year. These two tracks feel like such a huge payoff from everything that's come before. For as good as the preceding 5 tracks are, and make no mistake, they are genuinely spectacular, the delivery and execution of these last 2 had me absolutely reeling. Heimslit takes its time, the first few minutes layering on the thick, synth-laden atmospherics to the point where it nearly becomes overwhelming. It's the kind of music to lay back to let it take you away to the grim darkness of the polar night that its mood invokes. But then just as you're ready to fall away forever, the thickest, meatiest, most terrifying bass tone ever just cuts through the darkness. This is the sort of bass tone that could vibrate your bones out of their sockets if it wanted to. It's absolutely horrifying in the best possible way and reminds me a little bit of Cult of Luna's Adorned to Fear, but I don't know, less grimy and more sophisticated, I think, for lack of a better descriptor. We're then treated to the second half of the song that builds and builds these layers and layers of guitars and synth, with Kari really stretching his vocal cords out, delivering the kind of yells and screams I've not heard since Devin Townsend's most legendary live performances. Seriously, I cannot say enough good things about this man's voice. The control, the depth and the range, it's absolutely incredible. It is so threatening and demonic, but with such a fine-tuned sense of power and precision. Now, I'm a vocally driven guy with music, and I think I would easily call Kari my vocalist of the year, and if he continues down this line, could easily end up as one of my favourite singers, possibly of all time. Hoskefla isn't quite as impactful as what preceded it, but it's going for a much more metal route, with less atmospheric build-up and a more immediate body blow to its songwriting. And it still works incredibly well. The guitars are more at the forefront here, with some suitably epic and climactic riffing. The band knows this is the final furlong, and they're not afraid to throw some of the hookiest, most engaging material in the album at you for one last hurrah. Now, I get some serious Ziltoid the Omniscient vibes from this track, not just in the guitars, but in Kari's vocals too. Almost feeling like this is the older, cooler Ziltoid returning to Earth to plunder it of its coffee once more. At the end of the day, Mur's debut album is one of the most mind-blowing musical experiences I've had this year. I'm utterly obsessed with this record to the detriment of almost everything else that's come out in 2024, as I can't help but compare it all to this staggering monolith of some of the best metal music in the world right now. The album art kinda sucks. I mean, it nearly put me off trying this one out. So, what else can I possibly say about Mur's self-titled debut album? God, honestly, I've been sitting quite happily on my top 3, possibly top 5 albums of the year for around a month now. I've placed Opeth somewhere in my list, and you'll find out where soon enough. And I was ready to start preparing my album of the year video for recording, editing, etc, etc. And then these guys came along, and they have the barefaced cheek to show up with their riffs, and their vocals, and their textures, and their atmospheres, and their perfect hair and jawlines, to make me realise that nothing in the top 5, hell, maybe even nothing in the top 3 is safe right now. But has this arrived too late? Or do I let the honeymoon period win? Or do I risk regretting not putting this one higher on my year-end list? You see, the year-end period is kinda stressful. I am forever doubting my placements, even after I've recorded the videos and made my choices etched into internet-based permanency. And last year, Moon Safari swept in at the last minute to claim my top spot, and I'm starting to wonder if a similar upset is about to happen in 2024 as well. Look, I've fallen absolutely head over heels for this album, and I think it's partly the shock value of not expecting this kind of music from this kind of artwork that's made me do a proverbial spit take. Mur are a tour de force and one of the most thrilling new bands to arrive on the scene. Now, if you're not into heavier music, then maybe this won't land for you, and, you know, I get that. But for anyone out there who loves their music big, bold and brash, with heart-stopping vocals and riffs to topple mountains, then you cannot miss this one. My personal recommendation is to grab a physical copy of this one. Look, I know I've clowned on the album art, but great music must be celebrated, and I'm already desperate for more from these guys, so please just throw some money at them. Go see them live if you can, and spread the good word, because frankly, there is a new king of post-metal in the world, and he demands your attention. This is all, of course, guys, just my opinion, so if you loved this one, if you hated this one, please talk to me about your experience with the Mur's self-titled album in the comments down below. Please do drop me a thumbs up if you like the video, please do tell all your friends about little old me, and please do consider dropping the channel a subscription if you've been enjoying my content so far. But until next time, guys, as always, keep your rhyme signatures pretty odd.